Hello guys, and welcome to the channel if this is your first time viewing. Obviously, I've been doing podcasts. I've just wrapped up my 2025 prep 2025 season, and honestly I wish I had done a little bit more vlogging during it, but what we're going to do going forward now is vlog at least weekly once how my off season looks going into my next season, whether that be the 2026 or 2027 season. I think it's so easy to stay accountable, to be vlogging during a prep because there's that much happening, and what you kind of miss out on is the journey to actually get there, to put that muscle on. So I'm coming off the back of a very successful season. I competed 4 times. I had a second, I had a third, and I then won my class in PCA Ireland before winning the UKBFF British heavyweight title, which was absolutely phenomenal. Feedback this season was, of course, as always, just a little bit more muscle. Conditioning was very good. So what you're going to watch here now over the course of the next, well, I suppose 12 to 18 months is me going about getting that muscle on and how that looks, because this is the important bit of bodybuilding. This is the kind of the nitty gritty bit that, people don't really see. They see the tip of the iceberg, they see you on stage, shred it, posing, all that kind of good stuff. But what they don't see is what bodybuilding is truly about, which is building muscle. So I hope you are ready to kind of follow along that journey, and sort of then you can be part of the next time that I'm on stage. So that's really the plan, is to, with this YouTube channel as well, I can be a little bit more in depth, I can be a little bit more open about supplementation, about anabolic usage, and you get a bit more of an insight into my life in terms of my coaching and everything else that goes on around it as well. And what I will say is it's going to be a very real insight into everything that goes on, because, off season is challenging. Putting muscle on is hard. Losing fat, I say is easy. It's obviously not. The application is easy, you can do it a lot quicker, but actually building the tissue, that's the tough bit, and that's why you don't see so many big, heavy bodybuilders anymore. We see a lot in classic, we see a lot in men's physique, but what does it take in all aspects, mentally, physically, and everything else around it, to be a successful open bodybuilder? And I'm hoping to prove that over the course of the next 12 to 18 months as to what goes on. So yeah, off the back of that season, obviously I was lean for a fairly long time. Just to give a little bit of a background as to where that's been and how I'm at now. I'm now 5 days post-show. So really this phase is about, I suppose, getting healthy, getting the body in a place where it's responsive to build tissue. Now, what I will say is at this prep in general, it was of course challenging, but we didn't have to push the boat out quite as much in terms of cardio, in terms of calories. We got lean earlier and basically were able to feed into the show. So there wasn't that same amount of food noise. There wasn't that same amount of fatigue, I will say. One of the biggest and worst aspects for me during that whole prep was my sleep. It's something that needs recovered, and that's something that I'm paying a massive emphasis on as well now. You can see there, I'm still up around 4:30, but that gives me an opportunity to obviously full-time online coach, so I can get to work fairly quickly and be quite productive in those hours. That being said, that needs something that is going to need sorted. Training wise, we're going to go over training, what my new training split looks like later in the video, based off of the judges' feedback. I'm going to go over some of my supplementation, and I'm going to go over some of my anabolic use as well. So I think it's going to be a fairly in-depth one in this particular first vlog, but it's going to set up everything else then going. So from a bodyweight perspective, I started my off-season ended my off-season last year at 232 pounds, was on stage, my last show around 208 pounds. As of today, I'm 213 pounds, and that weight's went up a little bit quicker than I expected, because actually nothing's really changed. Calories have stayed the same, output has stayed the same. Training still was back in the gym on the Monday after the Sunday show for legs. So nothing's really changed. But what has changed is we dropped some of the, the anabolics. So testosterone now is down to a TRT, physiological range level. I haven't ran that in 4 or 5 months. Mastron, I had up to between 800 and a gram, because the goal this year was to really bring in a dry, nasty physique. So actually bringing that estrogen down so your body couldn't hold too much in terms of fluid. That was really the goal. Now with that, there's going to be side effects. Blood work will be affected, particularly your HDL cholesterol. And that's something in the past that I've seen slightly out of range. So it's something over the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks and throughout my off season that I'm going to look at managing as best I can and get that stuff back in range. So obviously that takes quite a bit of supplementation, which I'm going to talk about as well. Also, we pulled growth hormone towards the back end through the shows themselves. Through the last 4 or 5 weeks, growth hormone was out, and it's something that I ran the majority of the year last year, around 5 IU, and pulling that out, what it done was basically shrink wrap me. Maybe there was a little bit of fullness lost, but the body wasn't holding any real water. And it is something that I noticed a difference from, pulling that growth hormone at the end, which I hadn't done before. And it did make a difference. So it's back in, and almost immediately, I would say, within a couple of days, I felt, that fluid retention in a good way. Fullness, the goal isn't to be super lean anymore, but I definitely feel that fullness. But I think that's been a contributing factor to the body weight going up. So, I'm going to keep an eye on it. I've checked my blood pressure daily. There's still some cardio in there as well to help manage that. And if the back pumps, which they got real bad, as anybody knows that finishes a prep, those back pumps can be pretty crippling. So just keeping an eye on that, because obviously that affects training performance. And at this stage, that's really not something that I want. But yeah, at least I know the stuff's real. So that's it. That's obviously a bonus, and it's something that going forward, really this year I need to be driving my body weight higher than I've done, while keeping body composition and really keeping training performance real high. The big thing for me is just not getting injured. I've had a lot of knee issues for a long time, and quads is one of the major things that I need to bring up this year. So again, later in the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my training plan, how that's set up, and how I plan on kind of managing that and navigating that as effectively as possible. Blood work is something I talk about a lot, and I think anybody that is doing this and taking this seriously and taking it to the level where they're using anabolics needs to be definitely at least on top of their blood work. So I have blood work scheduled for 5 weeks time with Randox, who I highly recommend if you are in Northern Ireland or Ireland. And you getting that feedback and seeing where everything is before you start pushing that side of things again. I'm very aware of, I have never had any issues with my liver or kidney, HbA1c, there's never anything out. The only LDL is always really well managed in terms of the bad cholesterol is always very well managed. What isn't well managed, because when we crush that estrogen, HDL becomes fairly low, and that's something that I really want to keep an eye on and get on top of. So my current supplementation, I got a lot of stuff from Elevate, so they are a very good brand, and I do actually highly recommend them. So we have some omega-3s, very, very sort of potent, very, very high quality. You've got actually over 1,000 milligrams of EPA in there. You get 720 milligrams of DHA. So it's a high quality omega-3, which is very, very important in terms of heart health. And I sort of say that anybody really should be taking that. We have vitamin D3 and K2. Again, this is sort of supplementation I would recommend to the majority of my client base as well. We have heart health, and that's from Triple X Nutrition. That was an ex-sponsor of mine. But again, it's got a very good profile. It's got ubiquinol, it's got curcumin, grapeseed, citrus bergamot at 500 milligrams. It was also supplementing with citrus bergamot as well on top of that, because I want it around 1,500 of that. I've seen that to have some of the biggest effect positively on my HDL cholesterol. But now I have the cholesterol support stack from Elevate, which is probably one of the best panels that I've seen, because it actually has citrus bergamot in at 1,500 milligrams per serving, which is obviously very, very high potency as well, alongside an array of other things like red yeast extract, all this sort of stuff that's going to massively support good cholesterol, and also look at your LDL cholesterol as well. So to be honest, this is one of the better panels that I've seen on a supplementation. So I'd highly recommend, if you are coming off, or even when you're on cycle, using this sort of stuff to try and manage that blood cholesterol, because the heart health is one of the biggest things you want to be looking at, alongside, I think, when you're pushing up as a heavyweight bodybuilder as well, blood pressure, because you don't know that's hurting you until it is. Again, it's not something I've ever had to manage. I have had to manage it, but it's not something that's ever caused me any concern. Again, I keep my diet in a very good place. Coming off the back of the show, I was straight onto my meal plan, which again, I'll talk through a little bit. There's no high fat processed foods. There was no binges. It's literally straight back onto the diet I was on, because ultimately I love this sport, and ultimately I've got big goals coming. This year coming, the next season I want to win an overall. I want to be challenging for PCA Pro cards. I want to win that UKBFF Pro card, because I feel there's unfinished business there as well. So that's kind of the goal. And then lastly, what I'm taking is just a good advanced multivitamin. Again, high grade. You can go into these shops like Boots and Superdrug, but they don't carry with them the same potency. If you just look at the panel on that, you're talking, there's 357 milligrams of magnesium. There's vitamin C, niacin, iron, vitamin E, zinc, vitamin B6. There's everything in there as well. So that way, it's just kind of covering all your bases. If you were to buy those individually, it would cost you a clean fortune. So go and have a look at Elevate. I'm also get sponsored by them too, so I got a code, so just give me a shout. But that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I'm looking at managing my own health, and I wouldn't use it if I didn't think, I wouldn't spend money, to be honest with you, on it if I didn't think it was useful. And I think it is, I think it's one of the better products in the market here. So do go and look at that. Supplementation is important, especially if you are using PEDs. And then finally, I use an electrolyte powder every morning alongside 1.5 litres as part of my morning routine. And we're kind of coming down now to T4. So T4, I have in 100 micrograms currently. But we'll probably continue to run that. During the prep, I was on T3 at 25 micrograms and T4 at 150. So kind of just tapering off all the fat burners and that side of things, because that puts your body in such a stressed state, which is useful, you know, for burning fat, but it's certainly not useful for recovery, certainly not useful for sleep, and that's certainly not useful for building muscle, which is the main goal now. And I have growth hormone in at 5 IU. So yeah, just want to be kind of as open as possible about this whole and what goes into doing it. And you'll see as I transition into my off season, you know, obviously what we're kind of using at that point, but hopefully, you know, you can take a lot from that. And as I say, today, really now, this morning is about online check-ins, so there'll be about 3 or 4 hours of work done in the morning time for myself. Then I'll get a bit of a walk in, I'll eat my first meal. I'm on 4,300 a training day, 4,100 on a non-training day. That will, I'm sure, slowly creep up. That's a lot of food to be coming out of a prep on. There's a lot of food to prep on, and that food will only but rise. And then today I have an upper body session today. My volume at this point is just that little bit lower because you're coming from a fairly fatigued state. So you always work that volume up over time and find that sweet spot. So I'm just trialing a few things at the minute before we get out of this health phase, so I can really hit the ground running come the start of October, well, the start of November really. And then we have Jill Wade, who is going for her IFBB Pro card down for some leg training tomorrow. So I'm going to catch a little bit of that in this vlog as well. So hopefully you enjoy. I'll talk through training a little bit more in depthly later, and just so you can sort of have a good insight into my day, what it looks like, the life of an online coach and a bodybuilder. Some say an easy one, I say a beautiful one. Based on preference, on digestion, on as well, like, are we actually making progress? And obviously the data you feed back to me via, yes, the data sheet, but your own perspective, and also most importantly the progress photos. That's when we start to make tweaks, because it's very easy to become emotional and make emotional decisions. But if we have all that data there, it means that we're taking that emotion out of it and we're being guided correctly by what we see actually in front of us. So, you know, this main plan's set up, you're given your preference and given... So guys, I want to talk about my training split and what that currently looks like, or what it's going to look like. You know, when I come off stage there, we kind of get feedback and we know, okay, in order to take my physique to the next level, to be more competitive at a higher level, what needs to be done. Feedback this year, which I know myself, was much better balance than last time. Conditioning was very good, and that's what really carried me. I've strengths, like my back shots are very good through the glutes, through the upper back. I need a little bit more through the hamstring. We need a little bit more everywhere. I need a little bit more through the arms, and I need a good bit more through the quads. Now, not to make excuses, but one of my biggest issues has been quad training, because I've had fairly bad knees. So I've tendinopathy in both knees and some arthritis in both knees as well. So trying to find a way to navigate that has been difficult, but like the more later into my training career I've got, the more I'll be able to do that. And the quads come up this year, but probably not to the same degree as the rest of my upper body. So it's trying to maintain that balance, because that's one of the I suppose the better portions of my physique, is having that balance in there. And I've got a decent structure now to match it, but a little bit more quad sweep, delivering that X frame. So how do I go about doing that? Last year, as I said, I ran one quad dominant session on the Monday, which gave my knees were sore after that, but it gave them a week to recover and I could hit them hard again. And then I had a hamstring dominant session in there with glutes. But I want to try and add a little bit more frequency in there. So what that basically means is just pulling back a little bit in the per session volume and spreading that out across the week. And then picking movements really that are not causing knee pain. So ideally I'd love to get into these big length and range movements, because that's what's going to cause the most damage and the most stimulus for the quads. But being realistic, like, there's only so many of them I can do while still having more overall volume across the week, if that makes sense. So plan this year is actually to trial a 6-day split. But again, per session volume is that little bit lower. So it means I can put a little bit more emphasis into body parts like arms and like the smaller muscle groups as well. You know, I think you see a lot of people at the start of their training career, which is great, running like upper lower splits and then push pull legs. But at some point then that refinement needs to happen. And that's, I believe, where I'm at now. So my Monday session after a rest day on a Sunday is going to be quads, because that's like priority number one. So I can put a lot of effort into that. running around 8 sets of actual working volume for my quads, and then there's 4 sets of hamstrings in there as well, a little bit of calves, a little bit of adductors. I've got a pull session on a Tuesday, which is one of my probably stronger muscle grips, as I say, then back shots. So it's all chest supported, so not taking anything away from like the lower back loading, which is important when it comes to my leg training. A push session in there, a little bit of delts, a little bit of chest. Not as much emphasis on that this year. We'll definitely bring them up, but I was running 2 push sessions last year, which doesn't need to be the case in my opinion this year. Thursday is a very, I'd say, quick arm session. So a little bit, you don't need a lot for it. So a 30-40 minute session doesn't eat too much into like fatigue, certainly doesn't systemically fatigue me, but I believe it will. We'll certainly trial it anyway. I believe it will bring those arms up to match some of those shots, especially through the chest and the delts. Then Friday is going to be my second lower body session. It's still going to be a little bit more glute ham dominant. I've RDLs in there, starting with hamstring curls. I'm just doing 1 set of hip thrusters because glutes for me is a very dominant body part, but I don't want to lose them. I want to make sure that they're still a strength, because it's all well and good working on your weaknesses, but you want to maintain those strengths in your physique. And then I'm drip feeding 5 sets of actual quad volume. So again, from movements that aren't overly taxing. So be 3 sets of leg extensions in there and some form of like quad dominant leg press. And I believe I should be able to get away with that, but that's then 13 to 14 total sets of quads across the week, where I was only running 10 the last time around. So be interested to see that. And then an upper body session on the Saturday. So not too much in there. I think 3 pressing movements, 3 pulling movements, and 1 side delt movement, and rest on the Sunday. So that's the plan. But the thing is, when you do these sort of things, you've got to trial them. You've got to take your own body's feedback and be very honest about it as well. Obviously recovery is an important aspect of it. Like at this minute in time, coming out of a prep, my volume is much lower, but over time, as food gets higher, as my sleep starts to get better, as we reintroduce PEDs, that volume could be crept up a little bit. But then with that, obviously, and all those things, your strength's then going up. So, you're still a balancing point between doing too much and not recovering and not seeing that progress. And I believe I got to a point last year in my off season where my volume was getting so high that my performance was actually dipping. So really important to keep an eye on that. But training is an art, training is a skill, and it's the part of bodybuilding that I like, is the intricacies of it, the nerdy side of things. So I'm interested in running this split, and as I said today, I'm going to have an upper body session. I had to just change it around this week, and then a lower body session tomorrow. So you'll see some of that upper body session in there today. Big bowl of oats. Fantastic way to start the day. I would keep leaving water, what going for me. And I'd pay for the thing. Good morning, guys. So joining me in rainy Lauren. Half the world is shut down because of a bit of rain and wind, but here, that's Northern Ireland for you. So yeah, good day yesterday. Session was good. I found cutting back a little bit in the volume, 2 sets per exercise. A little bit better connection. I'm trying to just build numbers. I'm just trying to find a baseline before pushing into this off season. So good session, followed by some physio work as well, massage work. That's something I get done weekly, and I find it to be very, very helpful in my off season. In prep, I always kind of go through it injury free, niggle free, just lighter, less inflamed. But in my off season, I see it as really important, followed by some chiropractor work, sort of every 4 to 6 weeks, and the back's been, touch wood, in a lot better place. So today I have lower body, so it's my second lower body session. So drip feeding a little bit more frequency in there, and Jill Wade is coming down. Now Jill's 2 weeks out from her, trying to retain her British PCA British finals title, and then she's going for a pro qualifier in the NPC. So that would make her the second female, I believe, women's physique athlete to be IFBB pro alongside Nikki Beattie. So we're in illustrious esteem today. Yeah, so mate, I found this year, like I've placed myself in environments with sort of higher quality, higher level athletes, and it's really been a big thing. It's drove me on. It really just goes to show how much your environment has a role in your success. So looking forward to the day, reintroducing some RDLs, took that out towards the back end of prep, just from a stability standpoint and trying to stay injury free. So nice and slowly build that up again. But yeah, looking forward to this one today. So I've just done that.
Over your head slow, Jill. Just one, Jill. How's my leg? What?
Just get your mouth around it. So big leg session just wrapped up there. That's the first time. This is actually a 6-day week split, so that's actually the first time that I've ran that, and it felt good. Obviously it'll take a few weeks to get that feedback and see is that the right thing for us, but leg session, no real knee pain, and that's honest to God been the first time since I've trained legs in twice in a week where I've had no knee pain. So I think it's just picking smart, simple movements. Generally just a pretty good session there. Obviously Jill there just going show to show. The girl is an absolute machine. Like, she is peeled. I don't think those videos do her justice. You know, it's what hard work is all about. She really shows that. So absolutely fair play to her, honestly. So to finish the day off, I'm going to head up to Belfast to see the boys. It's been a long time since I've had a social and actually went and seen everybody. So I'm looking forward to that. Feeling a little bit tired still. I definitely don't get fully recovered like very, very quickly when you've been that lean for that length of time and bouncing between shows. But I've been on plan with food all week. Wardy had said, go and just relax a little bit, let the head settle a little bit, let the body kind of settle. So yeah, I think the social is in order. So I'm going to wrap the video and the vlog up there today. Obviously that's the first one I've done, and hopefully you will follow along with this off season. But today, I might even indulge myself in a wee Guinness. It has been a while. I'm sure that'll sit well. Be fucking sucked down a bit like having peak max. But hopefully you enjoyed the vlog, guys, and tune in again soon.